I didn't set out to find proof. I set out to clear a trail camera card and grab a few sunrise shots for the channel. It was a late October morning, that sharp, brittle kind of cold that makes breath hang like smoke, when I walked the ridge behind my friend's property in northern Washington. The place sits where the trees begin to close in, hemlock and Douglas fir, constant dripping from old growth, a creek that sounds older than anyone who lives nearby. People vanish from places like that, not because monsters take them, but because the land swallows them whole. That's what I told myself as I clipped the camera off its post. The camera was a Recon I model he'd mounted 6 months earlier near a muddy game trail. He wanted deer pictures. He got a couple of does, a raccoon, and, as it turned out, this. On the SD card, buried between two innocuous midday stills, was a video file labeled with a timestamp. October 18, 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 46 seconds. The file size was small. The camera was motion-triggered and set to low resolution to save space. What I watched on my living room monitor at 1:09 a.m. the next night looked, at first pass, like bad footage. Grainy, green tinge, the kind of thing 1,000 hoaxes are built on. But the rhythm of it, the gait, the way the creature moved through brush, the sound that rode under the wind, didn't match any animal I know. The clip opens on a collar fog. The infrared picked up white flares where branches brushed, but there, moving to the frame from left to right, was something tall. Not a man in a suit, not a bear on its hind legs. The shoulders were wide and the torso narrow beneath, like an inverted pyramid. Hair, dense, dark, matted, clung to the shoulders, swung when the head rotated. It was hunched, but not because it lacked height. It was built like a compact freight train, shoulders and hips carrying weight in a way that made the earth seem to anticipate its steps. At first, I thought it carried a log. Then the camera caught enough angle to show that whatever it was hauling wasn't wood. It dragged. That word is the only honest verb for the motion. The creature's left arm reached back, knuckles curling around something wrapped in canvas or hide. The object scraped the leaf litter with a steady, impatient rhythm. Leaves sank and scattered, then clumped where the weight passed. There was a sound, a wet, sucking scrape that registered as a low-frequency thrum through the speakers. My teeth tightened the first time I heard it. It sounded human. I replayed the clip 12 times. There are little details that, once you see them, you can't unsee. The way the creature adjusted its grip every few steps, a micro-pause, the shoulder roll, the readjust, told me it was managing weight. The creature kept glancing back over its left shoulder, not at the camera. The camera's flash was off, but the path it had come from, like it expected pursuit. For the first 30 seconds, there was nothing else on screen, just fog and the scrape of whatever was being moved. Then, 60 yards behind, as if answering the earlier look, 2 red dots appear, the eyes of a coyote silhouette, small and uninterested, then gone. The creature hesitated, then broke into a staggered run. The last frame the camera recorded before the battery hiccuped was the creature entering a denser stand, where the underbrush thickened and the infrared smeared into a wash of black. For a heartbeat, the creature turns fully to the camera. Its face is a smear, but not featureless. I could make out a brow that threw a shadow like a cliff over the eyes, a muzzle too short to be a human's, and a mouth that closed like a seam. Long, flat teeth, a lip curled. The creature cocked its head, giving the impression of curiosity, and then it was gone. I didn't scream, not in the video room. I sat very still and listened to the old house breathe. I called Tom at 2:15 a.m. He answered on the third ring. "What's wrong?" "Tom, you need to see this," I said. My voice didn't shake. I wanted it to. "Come down in the morning. Bring your recorder." By dawn, there were 4 of us in the den. Me, Tom, my producer Mina, and a guy from the local feed store named Harris, who swore he'd seen tracks 30 years ago and never stopped telling people about it. We watched the clip on loop, full screen, with the sound turned up. Mina is the kind of producer who asks the questions nobody wants asked, the one who knows when to cut the footage. She leaned forward, squinted, and then checked the camera housing for tampering. The seals were intact. "This doesn't smell staged," Harris said without irony. "There's a weight to it. There's intent." Intent. It's the worst word possible when you're trying to rationalize unexplained things. A tree falling has intent only in the physics. A wolf has intent but is constrained by hunger and instinct. Intent suggests planning. Intent suggests a mind that recognizes risk and consequence. We did what anyone with an internet channel does. We checked the metadata, scrubbed the frame by frame, and extracted stills. The SD card reported a battery dip at 215, which matched the drop in illumination on the clip. We cross-checked with the other camera in the area. He had a second unit by the creek, but there was no corresponding footage. The creek camera had an automatic tick in its log. It had recorded light at 216, but nothing human or animal big enough to trigger it had passed that sensor sweet spot. That afternoon, we walked the trail. The scrape was real. You could see the difference in the duff. Striations where something heavy had been drug. The leaves peeled back in a way I associate with people dragging sacks on muddy floors. The smell struck me first. A copper-wet tang under the spruce needle rot, like old blood warmed by a log fire. I pressed my glove to the damp, and a dark smudge clung to the fabric. "Don't say it," Mina said. "I need to," I said. "We need to check the county reports." There's a municipal cadence to disappearances where I live. A missing hiker here, an overdue hunter there. People leave, get disoriented, walk toward sound, end up in wet ravines or under rock slides. But in the sheriff's blotter, nothing matched that strip of fog and scrape and the date on the camera. No missing persons file for October 18th. No search parties. No booms of news vans or outriders from Reddit. It was as if whatever the camera recorded had been predicted by the woods themselves and kept quiet. That's when the real question started. Did we show this on the channel? Did we push the clip raw? Did we contact the sheriff? How do you footage proof a mystery? Mina wanted to release a teaser. "We don't do fake," she said. "We release a clip, no edits. Let people tear it apart. If it's a hoax, people will rip it to shreds. If it's real, we'll get leads." Tom argued for withholding. If this is human, we have a responsibility. That's sound. It could be a person. There's no telling what kind of trouble we're putting someone into if we put this out there. I sat on the porch that night and watched the property line where the camera had pointed. Lights on the highway were a distant smear. In my inbox, an anonymous user had already pinged me. "If you post that, don't come back to the ridge." The message had no signature. The words tasted like a dare. We did both. We filed a tip of the county, and we released a still frame with the caption, "Found footage. Who or what is this?" Full clip tonight. It was the only honest way forward. The internet would be the jury, but it would also be the magnifier. People would comb the frame for rope fibers, for seams, for a planted jacket. People are ruthless with proof. The response was immediate and mirroring the night. Some called an elaborate hoax. Others offered names from folklore. Sasquatch, skunk ape, the hairy devil at the edge of town. Someone posted an alt account from halfway across the country that claimed to have once worked on a scientific retrieval team for a classified primate. The comments became a topography of hope and cynicism. Then Harris called. "You need to get back out there. Now." I asked why. He said only. Tracks fresh, big as a skillet. We went. It was late. The sky had been surprised into a clear, brutal blue. The scrape was deeper, where the canvas had been dragged. The underbrush had collapsed into a trench. And the tracks Harris swore he'd seen? They were enormous. A long, two-part step pattern, monolithic, heel, then ball, with a slappy toe impression. The prints laid out a path toward a small ravine known by locals as Hollow's Mouth. Folks don't go there after dark. There's a waterlogged hush to the place, as if the land kept its breath there. In the ravine we found more signs. Tufts of dark hair snagged on alder, a splintered cedar limb with fresh teeth marks, and, half buried under moss, the corner of a canvas that looked like the one from the footage. I pulled at it with gloved fingers and found rope, rough-hewn, hand-twisted, knotted in a pattern I couldn't place. There was dried matter at the seam. Mina photographed everything. Tom called someone in the evidence department at the sheriff's office, who agreed to a welfare check in the morning. We found a boot later, half a mile from where the canvas was. It wasn't on the camera footage, and to this day, I don't know if it belonged to the thing being dragged or to something else entirely. The boot was the size of a small canoe and laced with a cord that frayed like the canvas. Inside, under the insole, we found a scrap of paper, a name and a phone number, the ink smeared as if it had been soaked. The name matched nothing in the missing persons database. We turned everything over to the sheriff. The deputy who came out had a red face from driving fast and an expression I'd seen before crime scenes, equal parts tired and small. He took the SD card, the hair samples, the rope, the boot. He asked us to wait. He meant he didn't want cameras on the scene. He meant this could be bad. "You're sure the footage is real?" he asked. In that way, only people who are desperate for certainty ask. I watched the deputy leave. I wanted to call the channel's lawyer. I wanted to call the network. Instead, I called my grandmother, who listens to my videos without fail, and who once told me, over jam and hot tea, that some things get watched so others can sleep. "Don't go looking for trouble," she said. Her voice was the voice of somewhere else, of a house without cameras, where mysteries are still allowed to be mysteries. I nodded, but the camera and the scrub frame sat in my mind like a second pulse. Night fell, and the ridge sounded larger. My sleep was raw with images of shoulders hunched against fog. I dreamed of hands, long, calloused, and smelling of river rot, arranging a bundle like a farmer straps a young sow. In the dream, the creature looked at me and tilted its head the same way it had looked at the camera. It had not the bloodthirst of a predator. Its eyes were not human. They were calculating. At 3:17 a.m., my phone pinged, an unknown number. The message was a 3-word text. "You were warned." I deleted it. Then I watched the footage again. The most dangerous mistake is reading for meaning before you have the facts. The camera gives you temptation. Prove it. Explain it. File into a drawer marked monsters or hoaxes. The footage is not evidence until the coroner, the lab, and the logbooks declare it so. But humans are meaning-making creatures. We cannot look at something unsolved and not bend it into a story. That is how legends begin. A single frame, a single smell, and a public that needs a pattern. We published a full clip at midnight on a Tuesday. We preface it with a simple statement. We had turned the physical evidence over to law enforcement. We were releasing the footage to solicit leads. The video went viral within hours. Overnight, our inbox filled with every kind of response. The helpful, the deranged, the expert. Someone from a private lab offered to test the hair. A self-proclaimed cryptozoologist asked to be flown in. A forum user messaged a claim that 9 similar incidents had been reported across 3 counties in the last 3 months. And then, between the flood of theories and tsunami of ridicule, came a message that chilled me more than anything else. A shaky cell phone video shot by a hiker 2 miles away, recorded 2 nights after our clip. It showed, for a second, a hulking silhouette crossing a ridge, something draped over its shoulder. The video was worse quality than ours, all angles and motion blur, but the silhouette matched. The time code? 2:14. When patterns repeat, coincidence turns into sequence. When sequence repeats across time and space, you gather yourself to do the work that matters. Locate those who might be in danger and pull them out before they vanish. That is what sensible people do. That is what I want to say when the county sent a press release that finally showed up on the sheriff's website. They had opened an inquiry. They requested any additional footage from the public. We had footage. The sheriff had the physical stuff. Everyone wanted answers. I wanted only one. What was in that canvas? The sheriff's office moved slower than the forest did. They were still deciding who to assign to the case when Mina, restless as ever, found the next clue before breakfast. She barged into my kitchen holding her tablet, like a court summons. "You need to see this," she said. A man named Jared Edison, a solo wildlife photographer known for his aggressive off-trail trekking, had posted a cryptic message on a private forum at 4 a.m. If you heard the dragging, don't follow it. I learned the hard way. Something's watching from above the tree lean. Attached was a single still frame from a night vision body camera he used for personal logging. The image was a disaster of green haze, but you could see it. A tall, fur-covered silhouette, nearly identical to ours, half hidden behind a cedar trunk. Its left arm dangled something that looked disturbingly similar to the canvas from our footage. The timestamp? 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 9 seconds. Same night as our clip. Same minute. Same movement pattern. Same direction, deeper into the ridge. I called Jared immediately, expecting a panicked voicemail or a disconnected line. He answered on the second ring, whispering like he didn't want something to hear him. "You posted about the dragging sound." I said, "We have footage. We need to talk." A long breath. Then, "I don't know what I saw, but it wasn't carrying a deer." "Where are you now?" A pause that lasted too long. "Not home," he said finally. "I left. I've been sleeping in my truck since Thursday. I'm not going back to that ridge unless someone comes with me." "What was in the canvas?" Mina asked, loudly enough that the phone probably vibrated. Jared lowered his voice. "It wasn't canvas. It was hide, something tanned, and there was movement under it. A shape curled. It twitched like..." He stopped, like it wasn't dead yet. The call cut out. Not dropped. Cut. Hard click. Deadline. Mina stared at the phone. That wasn't nerves. That was someone hitting a button. I checked the incoming details. Caller ID blocked. But the last ping hit a tower somewhere between our county and the National Forest border. Jared was moving. Or fleeing. By noon, the sheriff finally showed. Not the deputy from before. The sheriff himself. A man whose reputation was built on two things: never raising his voice and never chasing stories he couldn't put on paper. He had our SD card in one hand and a sealed evidence bag in the other. Inside the bag was the tuft of dark hair we'd found. He didn't bother sitting. "Where's the rest?" he asked. "That's all we found," I said. He scanned our faces, tried to read who might be lying. "You didn't keep anything? Not a scrap, not a sample?" "No," I said. "We're not trying to stage a documentary. We're trying to help." He exhaled, rubbing his forehead. It was the first sign that something was off. He wasn't angry. He was worried. "We sent that hair sample to the state lab," he said. "Came back as inconclusive." "That means contaminated," Tom said. "No," the sheriff replied. "It means they couldn't match it to any recorded species in the database. Not bear, not cougar, not human, not livestock, nothing." The room chilled by a few degrees. "What about the rope?" Mina asked. The sheriff hesitated again. A crack in professional facade. "The rope?" Another sigh. The rope wasn't rope. The fibers were organic. Something biological. The lab said the weave looked almost deliberate. "Deliberate?" I said. "As in crafted? As in grown?" Silence. The kind that eats the world whole. Then the sheriff leaned in. "I need you three to stay away from that ridge until we get more people out there. Whatever left those prints is big. It's smart. And it's carrying something or someone." As he turned to leave, he added, "And if you get any more messages, any more videos, send them directly to me. Don't post them." We didn't agree. We just didn't correct him. We went back up that night. Not because we were brave, but because curiosity is the most dangerous drug humans have ever invented. It dulls fear, sharpens stupidity, and convinces you the worst thing that could happen will always happen to someone else. This time we brought thermal, night vision, and a drone with a fresh battery. The forest was quieter than before. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed to avoid the ridge. At 9:47 p.m., while checking the ground near the ravine, Mina froze. "Look." Another drag mark. Fresh. Cleaner. As if whatever had been carried was lighter now. Or emptier. The tracks beside it were clearer, too. Deeper heel, slightly wider gait, and sharper toe impressions like claws or elongated nails had pushed into the soil. The drag marks curved toward a spot where the ground dipped into a narrow gully. From a distance, it looked like a natural depression. Up close, it looked carved, as if something had been digging with enormous hands. Tom launched the drone. The thermal map blinked to life. Blue for cold, yellow for warm, red for hot. The forest was a patchwork of blues and greens. Then something moved across the screen. A red signature, enormous, hunched, fast. "Is that..." Mina started. The figure stopped. Turned. Looked up, not at the drone. through the drone, as if it recognized the heat signature of the battery or the frequency of the rotors. Then it stepped aside, revealing what had been dragging. A shape, small, curled, radiating a faint, dying warmth. Human warmth. The drone feed flickered violently, then cut to black. We heard it 10 seconds later. Not a roar, not a cry. A low, chest-deep groan, layered with 2 pitches, one high and human, one low and primal. A sound that did not belong in any known ecosystem. The dragging sound came next. Slow, purposeful, coming from the gully, getting closer. "Lights off," I whispered. We backed up slowly, but the ridge seemed smaller now. The trees tighter, the path narrower. The sound scraped across the earth like it was carving its way directly toward us. We stopped breathing. Then silence. Not natural silence. Intentional silence. As if something was waiting for us to move. We didn't. We stayed frozen for nearly 2 minutes until a twig cracked somewhere behind us, not from weight, but from placement, as if something had set its foot down gently, deliberately. We retreated without speaking, without recording, without looking back. Only when we reached the truck did Tom break the silence. "It wasn't hunting," he said. "It was relocating." "To where?" Mina asked. No one answered. But deep down we already knew. Somewhere farther. Somewhere colder. Somewhere hidden. And whatever was under that hide wasn't entirely dead. We didn't sleep that night. The drone footage dying mid-recording wasn't a glitch. It was interference. Intentional or biological, we didn't know yet. By morning, something stranger happened. Jared, the photographer who warned us, contacted us again, but not by phone. He showed up at my driveway. His truck looked like it had been driven through a landslide. Mud caked the undercarriage. Pine needles stuck in the grill, and a fist-sized dent deformed the passenger door. He stepped out slowly, scanning the tree like he believed it would blink. His face was pale, eyes bruised with exhaustion, beard untrimmed. Mina and Tom came outside immediately. "What the hell happened to you?" Tom asked. Jared didn't answer, not until he checked every window, every car mirror, every tree trunk around my house. Only then did he speak. "You posted the video," he said. "I told you not to." "We needed leads," I replied. Jared shook his head. "You don't get it. That thing isn't wandering. It isn't lost. It isn't curious." His voice tightened. "It's cleaning up." "Cleaning up what?" Mina pressed. Jared exhaled sharply, as if the air had weight. "There's more of them." He told us everything, and I recorded it, because his story wasn't just important, it was evidence. "I was on the East Ridge," Jared began, 2 nights before your footage. Around 2:30 in the morning, I heard it. That dragging sound, wet, rhythmic, wrong. He paced the porch, clutching his arms like he was still cold from that night. At first, I thought it was a bear pulling a kill. But the smell, he swallowed, it was metallic, like hot iron and rot. "What did you see?" Mina asked. Jared hesitated. "The first one." "The first what?" Tom said. He ignored him and continued. "I followed the sound until I reached an old logging road, abandoned for years. That's when I saw the shape. Same size as yours, same build, same wrongness. But it wasn't dragging a canvas." He looked up at us. It was dragging a man. My chest tightened. "You're sure?" I asked. I saw the boots. I saw the arm. I saw the jacket. Tan field jacket. One of those heavy-duty ones hunters wear. He wasn't moving. "And you tried to help?" Mina said. "No." Jared said immediately. "Because the creature wasn't alone." He paused. "There were 2 more watching from the tree line." That landed like a hammer blow. He continued. "They weren't participating. They were supervising." His voice went thin. They stood perfectly still. No breath. No shift of weight. Just watching. A cold pulse traveled through my ribs. After 30 seconds, the creature dragging the man stopped. Jared said. It sniffed the air, slowly, like it tasted me through the fog. "Did it see you?" I asked. "I don't know. I didn't wait to find out. I backed away, kept foliage between us, and then I ran. But before I reached the truck, I heard something else. He closed his eyes as if reliving it. A second dragging sound. Lighter, faster, like they weren't cleaning up one body. They were moving multiple. Mina scribbled notes. Tom checked his phone. I watched the tree lean. Then Jared lowered his voice. Someone contacted me after I posted that still frame. He said, not a troll, not a kid, someone from a block number. What did they say? I asked. They told me to delete everything. They knew the exact coordinates of where I camped. They said if I went back to that ridge, I wouldn't come out. And you believe them? Tom asked skeptically. Jared pulled out his cracked satellite phone. The screen showed a single unread message, time-stamped 2 nights earlier. Leave the ridge. They are migrating. My blood went cold. Who is they? Mina asked quietly. I don't know, Jared whispered. But whoever sent that message knew exactly what those things were doing. We brought Jared inside. I pulled out the printed stills from our footage, the enhanced frames, the thermal signature maps. Jared stared at them, jaw tightening. That's the same one, he said. Same shoulder slope, same arm length, same gait. What about the others? I asked. The watchers? His expression hardened. They were slimmer, taller, and they didn't walk, they glided. Their feet barely touched the ground. I think the one dragging wasn't dominant. What does that even mean? Tom scoffed. Jared answered without hesitation. I think they have roles. Silence. Then Mina leaned forward. Say it. He said it. I don't think these things are animals. I think they're organized. Before we could digest that, headlights swept across my driveway. A black SUV. Unmarked. Windows tinted darker than legal. It pulled up slowly, too slowly, and idled. No one stepped out. No one rolled down a window. No lights flashed. It just sat there, engine low and heavy, like a breathing thing. Jared froze. That's the same model that followed me after I posted the still frame. My pulse climbed. Tom reached for the door. Don't, I said. Wait. The SUV lingered another 5 seconds. Then it pulled away. Not fast. Deliberately. Purposefully. Cleaning up. Just like the creatures. When the SUV disappeared down the road, Jared finally spoke. You're in this now. All of you. And if those things dragged a man into the woods... He looked toward the tree lean. They didn't do it for food. What then? Mina asked. His answer was quiet but devastating. They did it because something told them to. We left the window blinds closed for the rest of that morning. Nobody said out loud, but the message was clear. Whatever followed Jared wasn't done. By noon, we finally regrouped in the kitchen. The table looked like a war desk. Thermal prints, satellite maps, stills and footage, timestamps, drone diagnostics, and Jared's notes spread across every inch. It was Mina who spotted the pattern. Look at the drag paths, she said, tracing 2 lines on the map with her pen. Ours came from the west. Jared's came from the north. They intersect here, a point deep inside the ridge, a place unmarked on any standard map. Only Tom recognized it. That's the old survey boundary. Government land, supposedly closed. Closed for what? Jared asked. Wildlife preservation, Tom said. At least that's the public claim. Mina snorted. Yeah, and Bigfoot pays property taxes. We stared at the dot on the map. The intersection wasn't accidental. It was a path, a route, a system. Whatever they're dragging, Mina said, they're dragging it there. And that's when Jared said something that rewired the entire investigation. That clearing didn't exist 3 months ago. Tom scoffed. You know that how? Because I camped there in August, Jared replied. And it was nothing but dense timber. He wasn't guessing. He was certain. Something made that clearing recently. And something was using it now. We geared up, thermal monocular, 2 drones, parabolic mic, flare, 3 cameras, and enough power banks to run a small warehouse. The hike to the boundary was only 3 miles, but the terrain made it feel like 12. The deeper we went, the more wrong the forest felt. Birds weren't calling. Insects weren't humming. The wind didn't move the canopy. It was as if the entire ecosystem was holding its breath. At the second mile, Jared stopped abruptly. Smell that? We did. An odor that didn't belong in nature, metallic, animalistic, damp and hot, like the inside of a rusted engine left in the rain. The dragging smell. Tom pointed ahead. Tracks. Deep, fresh, toe impressions longer than my palm. Stride nearly 4 feet. But there was something else. A second set of tracks. Smaller, lighter, almost human-like. Jared crouched, touching the soil. These weren't here yesterday. Mina photographed everything. I recorded a timestamp, 2:14 p.m. Same minute pattern as the original footage. Almost ritualistic. We reached it 15 minutes later, and it was worse than we expected. A perfect oval, 40 yards wide, trees uprooted in a clean semicircle, as if something massive had scooped them from the earth. But the ground was the real horror. Drag marks converged from all directions, at least a dozen, some fresh, some older, all ending at the center of the clearing. And in that center, something was carved into the dirt, a shape, a symbol, a spiral of overlapping arcs that formed a pattern that hurt the eyes to look at. Not human, not random, not natural. Jared knelt beside it, whispering. That wasn't made by hands. Mina scanned with thermal. "Oh my God," she murmured. The ground was still warm, warm in a perfect ring around the carving, as if something enormous had been kneeling there. Recently, minutes ago, a cold wind moved through the clearing, and Jared went pale. They were just here, on the far side of the clearing, partly buried in dirt. Something glinted. Tom dug it out carefully. A metal clip, bent, smeared with dry brown red. We all recognized it before anyone spoke. A backpack strap buckle. Civilian brand. Expensive. Used by hikers. Mina wiped it gently and held it closer. There were teeth marks on it. Not human. Not canine. Not bear. A compressive bite force pattern. But the spacing between the teeth was impossible. Jared whispered, almost hoarse. That's from the man they dragged. The clearing felt smaller after that. Tighter. Predatory. Tom froze first. Then Mina. Then Jared. All facing the same direction. The tree to the north. What? I whispered. Jared raised one trembling finger. Look between the two cedars. Don't move fast. I turned slowly. At first, I saw nothing. Then the shape resolved. A shadow that wasn't a shadow. A silhouette that stood too still. Too tall. 8 feet. Maybe 9. Hunched. Arms long enough to reach its knees. Shoulders like stacked stone. Hair swayed, even though the air was dead still. But the worst part, the part that hit like a physical blow, was how it watched us. Not with curiosity, with recognition. As if we were not intruders, but expected. Jared whispered, "That's one of the watchers." The creature didn't move, but something behind us did. A low dragging sound. Slow. Heavy. Close. We spun around. Another silhouette, emerging from the southern tree line, dragging something wrapped in hide. Something shaped like a human body. It dropped the bundle at the clearing's edge. And then it looked at us. Not with fear. Not with aggression. With intent. The same intent from the footage. A message. A demonstration. A warning. Then a third sound shattered the standoff. A deep, guttural, vibrating call. From somewhere beneath the clearing. Not above. Not around. Below. The ground under our boots trembled softly, as if something enormous moved underground. Mina's voice cracked. "We have to go. Now." We didn't argue. We ran. The watchers didn't chase. They didn't need to. We had seen the clearing. We had seen the system. We understood. The dragging wasn't the event. It was preparation. And whatever they were preparing for was underneath that clearing, waiting. We didn't stop running until the clearing was far behind us, and the dragging sound faded into the trees like a threat swallowed by distance. Only when we reached the ridge, overlooked, did we catch our breath. Tom doubled over, hands on his knees, gasping. Mina leaned against the trunk, eyes wide, hands shaking. Jared kept scanning the tree lean, as if the watchers had followed us all the way out. But they hadn't. They didn't need to, because the worst part of the encounter wasn't the watchers. It was the bundle, and the fact that the creature had placed it at the edge of the clearing. Not to hide it, not protect it, but to show it to us deliberately. We knew why. It wanted us to see. It wanted us to understand. And that meant we had to go back. Not immediately, but soon. Back at my house. We spent an hour in silence, each trying to calm the adrenaline enough to think straight. The footage from our cameras was shaky and mostly useless. Branches, silhouettes, and the trembling spiral carved in the clearing. Then my phone rang. The sheriff. Not a courtesy call. A demand. "Where are you?" he asked. His tone wasn't angry, just stretched thin. "At home," I said. "Are you all safe?" My stomach twisted. "How do you—" "Just tell me," he cut in. "We're safe," I said. A long exhale on the other side of the line. "I got word from the fish and wildlife guy who reviewed your footage. He wants to talk to you." He paused. "And stay away from the boundary. No more hiking." "We already went," Mina said loud enough for him to hear. Silence. Then, "You need to come to the station. Now." "We're not suspects," Tom said. "No, but you're witnesses. And whatever you found, whatever you think you saw," the sheriff lowered his voice, "you're not the only ones reporting it anymore. At the station, the briefing room was darker than usual. Files covered the table. Maps, timestamp logs, photos. The sheriff didn't waste time. "In the last 72 hours, he said, "we've received 5 different calls describing tall figures moving through the woods, always between 2:10 and 2:20 a.m. Same window as our footage," Mina whispered. "All 5 callers described dragging sounds," the sheriff continued. "And all 5 said the creatures ignored them completely, like they were focused on something else." "Focus on the clearing," Jared said. The sheriff didn't deny it. Then he slid a photo across the table. It showed the hide-wrap bundle we saw earlier. But the picture was taken before we found it. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "Trail cam," the sheriff said. "A private one, registered to a missing person." The room froze. "Who?" Mina asked. The sheriff hesitated. "A hiker named Lance Hevers. He looked at us grimly. Went missing 8 days ago." I felt the temperature drop. His trail cam had captured a creature carrying the same type of hide-wrap bundle. Only in this photo, a leg stuck out. Human, and unmistakably wearing a tan field jacket. Jared dropped into a chair. "That's the man I saw them dragging." Meaning, the bundle we saw wasn't random. It was an animal. It wasn't debris. It was him, or what was left of him. "There's something else," the sheriff said. "We had seismic monitors in that region for landslide tracking." He put a tablet on the desk. On the screen was a vibration pattern. Not random, not natural, rhythmic, repeating every night at 2:15 a.m. Same time as the dragging. The sheriff pointed to the waveform. "Whatever you heard under that clearing, it wasn't an earthquake. It was movement." "Movement from what?" Tom asked. The sheriff's jaw clenched. "We don't know." While the sheriff prepared evidence packets, Mina's phone buzzed. A new email. No subject. No sender. Just a video file. 12 seconds long. She played it. The footage was night vision, filmed from a ridge opposite the clearing at roughly our altitude. It showed the oval clearing. Empty. Still. Moonlight faint on the dirt. Then a shape emerged from the ground. Not walked. Not climbed. Emerged, as if the soil parted. Something huge, something wrong, pushed its way upward through the earth. Broad shoulders. A torso. Arms long enough to brace on either side of the spiral pattern. It wasn't one of the watchers. It was bigger and older. The creature paused, half risen. Then it opened its mouth. Not to roar. To speak. A sound rolled across the clearing. Deep, layered, resonant. Like 2 stones grinding over a buried drum. The dirt around the spiral pattern trembled. The video ended abruptly, as if the person filming had run or been silenced. None of us spoke for several seconds. Then Jared said quietly, "That was a summoning." We replayed the clip again and again. The sound wasn't random. It had structure, cadence, almost language. The sheriff wiped his face, defeated. "This is above my pay grade," he said. "No," I replied. "You need to stay with this, because that sound wasn't meant for us." "Then who was it meant for?" he asked. Jared answered, "The Watchers." And the room went silent again. Piece by piece, it finally clicked. The dragging is an instinct. It's ritual, a delivery, a coordinated movement toward the clearing. The spiral symbol is not decoration. It's a threshold, and the creature emerging from the ground is the reason the others bring bodies to the clearing. Not to feed it, not to bury them, not to hide them, to awaken it. We weren't dealing with a lone Sasquatch. We weren't dealing with a roaming creature. We were witnessing a system, a hierarchy, a preparation. And whatever was under that clearing, whatever was finally rising, was the thing they were all serving. The sheriff swallowed hard. "What do you think it wants?" None of us answered, but we all had the same thought. More bodies, more offerings, more awakenings. And the dragging wasn't done. We returned home long after sunset. The sheriff told us not to go back to the ridge until his team reviewed the seismic data. We told him we wouldn't. We lied, because none of US could shake the same dread. Whatever was under that clearing was waking up, and the creatures dragging bodies weren't acting alone. They were acting in service. But the night wasn't done with us. Not even close. I woke to a noise that didn't belong. A soft thump on the front porch. Not hard enough to be a knock. Not soft enough to be an animal. A deliberate sound. Placed. I checked my phone. 3:02 a.m. Mina and Tom were sleeping in the guest room. Jared on the couch. None of them moved. Only me. So I went to the window. The porch light flickered. Once, twice, then went dead. And that's when I saw it. A shape in the shadows. Tall. Still. Watching the house. Not approaching. Not hiding. Waiting. I froze. My breath fogged the glass. Then something slid across the porch floor. A drop, then a roll. A bundle. Small. Wrapped in hide. Just like the ones we'd seen in the clearing. But this time, the creature had delivered it to me. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. I only watched as the silhouette stepped backward into the darkness, disappearing between the trees without a sound. The moment it vanished, the porch light flickered back on. The bundle remained. A gift, an offering, a message. I woke the others. Nobody wanted to open the hide-wrapped bundle. Nobody wanted to touch it. But it didn't give us a choice. As we stood around it, the hide shifted. Something inside moved. A small twitch. Then another. Then a sound. Not human. Not animal. A faint, croaking vocalization, like the sound the underground creature made, but softer, younger. Tom stepped back, so fast he hit the wall. Jared whispered, horrified, "God, they left us a newborn." But it wasn't that. It wasn't alive. The hide split open at the seam, not tearing, but unzipping along a natural but grotesque fold. Inside wasn't flesh. It wasn't organic. It was woven, a lattice of fibers, like sinew braided into deliberate patterns. A map, a message, a warning. Mina took a shaky photo. Then she froze. "Guys, look." The woven pattern wasn't random. It formed a symbol, the same spiral carved into the clearing. But around it were additional lines, extensions, routes, a network, a map of multiple clearings. Not one, not two, 9, all connected by paths, all marked with the same spiral symbol. And 8 of them were still untouched. Why give this to us? I whispered, but Jared knew, because they're showing us where they will go next. As we stare at the pattern, something happened that none of us were prepared for. The fibers inside the bundle shifted, not from wind, not from touch. They rearranged themselves, twisting, curling, forming shapes, letters, not English, not any script we recognized, but the spacing, the deliberate structure, the symmetry, It was language, written language, from creatures that shouldn't even exist in our fossil record. Mina covered her mouth. "They're communicating," she whispered, "with us." We recorded everything, every angle, every shift, and after 2 minutes, the fibers settled into their final shape. 3 symbols, then the spiral, then an arrow, south, toward the next clearing, toward the next awakening. At 6:15 a.m., before sunrise, headlights filled the driveway. Black SUVs. Not 1, not 2, 3. Doors opened. Not deputies. Not rangers. Not the sheriff. Federal uniforms. No patches. No names. But the sheriff climbed out of first SUV, face drawn tight, eyes red from worry. He saw the bundle on the porch. His expression collapsed. "You weren't supposed to go near that ridge," he said quietly. "You weren't supposed to lie to us." Mina shot back. A federal agent stepped forward, cold, expressionless. "We need the bundle," he said. "This is now a federal matter." Jared stepped between them. "This isn't a specimen," he snapped. "This is communication." The agent didn't blink. "We know. That's why it needs to come with us." I crossed my arms. "Where?" "To a containment facility." "No," Mina said. "Where exactly?" The agent didn't answer. He didn't need to, because in that moment, the sheriff spoke quietly behind him. "Please, just hand it over." He wasn't threatening. He was begging. That scared me more than the creatures did. Before we could argue, before any decision was made, the earth rumbled, a low, rolling vibration, not distant, not underground, close, so close that dust fell from the porch railing. Jared looked at the trees. "My God, they followed it here." The agent's hand went to his sidearm. The sheriff whispered, "Everybody inside. Now." We ran, because the watchers hadn't just delivered a message. They had delivered a summons. And the creature beneath the clearing, the one that had spoken, was no longer confined to the clearing. It was expanding its reach, its influence, and the dragging that once happened deep in the forest was now happening near my house. The ground didn't shake the way an earthquake shakes. It pulsed, a slow, rhythmic thrum, as if something enormous was learning to walk beneath the soil. The sheriff shoved us inside the house. The federal agents followed, slamming the door behind them, scanning every window with a predator's awareness. Nobody spoke, because we all heard it, a distant dragging sound, then another, multiple, in sync, approaching. Jared whispered, "They're forming a perimeter." He wasn't guessing. He knew. The agent shut off all lights and motioned us away from windows. But I had to look. When I peeked through the corner of the blinds, my stomach dropped. They were everywhere. Watcher silhouettes. Tall, still, perfectly spaced. Forming a ring around the property. 30 yards out. Maybe less. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching. Their eyes weren't glowing like in movies, but they reflected the faintest sliver of moonlight. A dull, eerie shimmer. 1, 2, 10, 20, every direction. "It's a coordinated posture," one of the agents muttered. "They're not here to attack. They're here to monitor, to guard," Jared corrected. "Or contain." Mina exhaled sharply. "Contain who? Us or the thing underground?" Nobody answered, because the answer was obvious. Both. While the watchers stared us down, the agent set up a portable signal jammer on my kitchen island. A matte black device, unmarked government issue. I overheard their whispered exchange. "Agent 1, they're closer to domestic habitation than ever. Protocol says we escalate." Agent 2, "No, we wait for confirmation before we call in a containment strike." Agent 1, "Confirmation of what?" "Look outside, this is a breach event." "Sheriff, you knew this was possible." Agent 2, "We've known for decades." Mina's eyes widened. Jared whispered, "I knew it. IF ****, ING knew it." I stepped forward. "What do you mean, decades?" Agent 2 didn't flinch. You think this is the first time a clearing has appeared? The agent motioned to the woven map, the spiral, the 9 mark points. We've found 8 of these formations across the country since 1974, he said, and 1 in Canada. Mina blinked. You're telling us these creatures have been operating for 50 years. Longer, the agent corrected. But organized activity? This pattern. He pointed to the spiral. That began in the 70s, and it's accelerating. Tom raised his voice. What the hell are they doing? The agent looked toward the watchers. We don't know, but his expression said otherwise. Jared suddenly straightened. Listen. At first, there was only silence, thick, heavy, stretching across the yard. Then, a low sound, a vibration, not from the ground this time, from the watchers, all of them, a synchronous hum, layered, harmonic, dissonant, a chorus without melody. It wasn't communication with each other. It was aimed at us. Record this. Mina hissed. I grabbed the nearest camera, but before I could hit record, the woven bundle on the table reacted. The fibers inside tightened, twisting, folding, coiling, rearranging. A new symbol appeared. A single swirl. Then 3 vertical marks. Then a broken circle. Jared stared, stunned. They're not warning us. They're giving us instructions. Agent 1 shook his head. No, that's not instructions. Yes, it is, Jared insisted. That symbol, it means movement, migration, a path. Agent 2 stepped closer. How do you know that? Jared hesitated. Then he said the one sentence that froze the entire room. Because I've seen it before. He dug into his backpack, hands shaking, pulled out a battered SD card case. This, he said, is from last year. I never released it. He slid the card into my laptop. A video opened. Low resolution. Night vision. A different forest. A different state. But the same clearing. Not identical. Identical in design. And in the center of the spiral, a creature kneeling. Hands on the soil. Head bowed, as if listening. Behind it, 2 watchers standing exactly like the ones outside my house. And on the ground beside them, another hide-wrapped bundle. Jared paused the video. There's more. He played the next 20 seconds. The kneeling creature rose, tilted its head. Then it spoke. A deep layered tone, shaking the camera sensor. The same vocalization we heard underneath the clearing. The same one now humming in the yard. Agent 2 exhaled. That's a command, he said quietly. We've suspected it for years. Command? Mina repeated. To do what? Agent 2 finally answered what nobody wanted to hear. To gather more bodies. Mina whispered. It's not hunting. It's conscripting. Tom swallowed hard. You mean it's building something? The agents didn't respond, but the sheriff did. His voice was soft, defeated. No, it's awakening something. Outside, the watchers fell silent. Every head turned toward the woods, toward the direction of clearing. Then, one by one, they began moving. Not toward us, toward the next location on the woven map, the next clearing, the next offering site. They were migrating, exactly as the bundle warned. The sheriff stepped back from the window. We have less than 24 hours, he said. For what? Mina asked. He looked at the spiral symbol, now glowing faintly with reflected moonlight, for the next awakening. For the rest of the night, none of us slept. The watchers had vanished into the trees, not retreating, not fleeing, but moving with purpose, as if following a schedule older than anything human. The federal agents barricaded the doors. The sheriff sat at my table, head in his hands. Jared stayed by the window, scanning the tree line like a man expecting death. But dawn brought something none of us anticipated. A survivor. Not from our county. Not from the search logs. Not from any missing person bulletin. Someone who should have been dead. The call came from a deputy 2 miles away. Sheriff, you need to get here. Now. Someone just collapsed on the road. The sheriff bolted upright. Hit by a car? He asked. No, the deputy replied. He walked out of the forest, from the North Ridge. Everything inside the room snapped into focus. The direction of the Watchers' migration. The direction of the second clearing on the woven map. The sheriff dragged us all into the SUVs. Even the federal agents followed. But when we reached the scene, the road was empty except for one man, wrapped in a torn jacket, lying face down on the asphalt. Jared froze. That's him. The guy from the clearing. The man I saw them drag. We approached slowly. The man's breathing was shallow, frantic. He wasn't bleeding. He wasn't limping. He was terrified, and when he looked up at us, his voice cracked into a whisper. Don't let them put me back. We loaded him into the back of the sheriff's vehicle. The federal agents surrounded it immediately. The sheriff ignored them. He grabbed the man's trembling hand. What's your name? Lance. The man gasped for air. Lance Hevers, the missing hiker. Mina swallowed. You were at the clearing. They dragged you there. Lance nodded weakly. They don't kill you, he said. His voice was barely audible. They don't eat you, they listen to you. A chill rolled through the entire SUV. Listen, Jared repeated. Lance nodded again, slower this time. They need us alive at first, to hear something, to echo something. His eyes drifted unfocused. The one underground, it speaks through them. The sheriff leaned closer. What does it want, Lance? Lance's voice cracked. More. It wants more. When we brought Lance into the clinic, the doctor froze. Not because of his injuries. There weren't any, but because of what was on his skin. All along his back, from shoulder to spine to ribs, were patterns. Not bruises. Not burns. Symbols. Drawn in dirt. Pressed into his skin, like something had traced them with enormous fingers. Mina grabbed my arm. They were the same symbols as in the woven map, almost identical. Only these symbols were arranged differently. Look, Jared whispered. His pattern, it's not a map. The federal agent finished the sentence for him. It's instructions. The sheriff backed away. You're telling me they used him? For communication? No, the agent replied. They used him as an amplifier. The doctor's voice shook as she pointed at Lance's torso. There's something else. Below the symbols, etched faintly, barely visible, were 3 long vertical marks, and beneath them, a spiral, the same design from the clearing. Only this time, the spiral was incomplete, broken, like a ritual that hadn't been finished yet. When Lance regained enough strength to speak again, he told us the part that changed everything. They didn't drag me for punishment, he said. They dragged me because the one below wasn't fully awake yet. Tom frowned. What does that mean? Lance stared at the ceiling. They placed me at the center. They stood around me, and then the ground hummed. It vibrated, like breathing. The underground creature? I asked. Lance nodded. I felt in my bones. I felt it listening to me. My heartbeat, my breathing, my fear. He shivered violently. And when it was done, it sent them away. Send who? Mina pressed. The Watchers, they all left at once, like soldiers following an order. Jared whispered. Which direction? Lance stared straight into my eyes. South. Toward the next clearing. Toward the next offering. Exactly as the woven map had shown. Back in the sheriff's station, the lead agent finally broke. He closed the blinds, turned off his radio, locked the door. Then he placed a classified folder on the table. This is not a wildlife situation, he said. This is not cryptozoology. This is not folklore. He opened the folder. Inside were photographs, black and white, grainy but unmistakable. At least 4 different clearings, each with spirals, each with Watchers. The earliest photo was dated 1957. This has been happening for generations, the agent said. And every time a spiral appears, it's followed by seismic activity. An awakening, Mina said. The agent nodded. The creatures aren't the threat. They're the workforce. The sentries. The gatherers. Then what's the real threat? Jared asked. The agent slid one final photo across the table. A shape rising from a clearing. Much larger than the Watchers. Much older. Not humanoid. Something else. Something deeper. Something built of earth and bone, an ancient design. The thing underground, I whispered. The agent nodded once. We call it the Harrower. The sheriff stepped away from the table slowly. Why didn't you tell us? He demanded. The agent's expression was stark. Because until today we didn't know it was fully waking. Outside, the ground pulsed again. Soft, rhythmic, growing stronger. Jared's voice cracked. It's calling the watchers to the second clearing. And if the ritual finishes? Mina asked. The agent looked at the Harrower's silhouette in the old photo. Then this county won't survive the week. The federal agent didn't wait. The moment he admitted the Harrower was waking, he ordered everyone into the SUVs. But the sheriff stepped in front of him. You're not running this alone. These are my people. My county. The agent stared at him, cold, unreadable, then nodded once. Fine, but you follow our lead. We drove south, toward the second clearing, the one the woven bundle pointed to. The watchers had marched their hours earlier. We didn't know what we would find, only that it wouldn't be empty. As we hiked the final half-mile on foot, the forest fell into an unnatural silence. Not the absence of sound, but the suppression of it. Birds perched motionless. Branches hung stiff in the air. Even the wind refused to pass through. It felt like stepping into a vacuum. The federal agent whispered, They've dampened the environment. How? Mina asked. They can manipulate tension in the soil. Pressure, vibration, acoustic frequency. He exhaled. Sound doesn't behave normally around them. Jared added quietly, That's why you don't hear them when they move. Because the watchers weren't just stealthy. They were engineered for silence. When we reached the second clearing, the scale hit us first. The first clearing was 40 yards across. This one, nearly 100. The spiral pattern had already been carved. Twice as deep, twice as wide. And the dirt was warm, fresh, vibrating faintly. Then we saw why. The watchers were working, moving in synchronized formation around the spiral, dragging logs, stones, uprooted trees, not building a structure, building a barrier, a circular wall around the spiral, not to keep something out, to keep something in. What is this? Tom whispered. Jared knew. It's a containment ring. For what? Mina asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have to, because the ground inside the spiral was moving. At first it looked like wind brushing the soil, then like an enormous pulse beneath the earth. Then the center bulged upward, slow, steady, as if something enormous pressed its way to the surface. The soil cracked. A deep groan rumbled through the clearing. Not loud, low, vibrational, like the earth itself was straining. The agent grabbed my arm. This is stage one. It's probing for the next offering. Tom whispered, You mean bodies? The agent didn't deny it. And then we saw something awful. The watchers turned toward the tree line. All at once, like hounds receiving a command. Something was coming through the forest. Branches cracked. Leaves trembled. Footsteps, heavy, dragging, shook the ground. It wasn't the watchers. It wasn't the Harrower. It was another creature, one we hadn't seen before. It stepped into clearing, massive, broader than the watchers, arms thicker, longer, covered in deep, scarred fur, and dragging behind it not one bundle, four, for bodies, wrapped in hide. Still, motionless, offerings. Mina covered her mouth to stop from screaming. The sheriff took a step forward before the agent stopped him. We can't interfere, the agent whispered. The hell we can't, the sheriff snapped. Those are people. The agent's voice hardened. If you interrupt this ritual now, they won't flee. They'll protect the Harrower. Tom whispered. Meaning? The agent locked eyes with him. They'll kill everyone here. Just then my radio buzzed. The deputy back at the clinic. Lance is awake again, he said, and he's asking for you. What does he want? I asked. He keeps repeating one phrase. Say it. The deputy swallowed audibly. He says, Don't let them complete the circle. My blood ran cold. The spiral, the barrier, the offerings. Jared whispered, "It's not a containment ring. It's a completion ritual. If they finish the ring," Mina said, "the harrower fully wakes." Agent 2 nodded grimly. "Correct." The harrower's form pressed higher beneath the earth, muscle-like mounds shifting under the soil. The ground cracked in a widening circle. The watchers moved in tighter formation. The carrier placed the bodies at the spiral center, one by one, and stepped back, waiting. Everything in me screamed to run, to retreat, to leave the forest forever. But Mina grabbed my sleeve. "We have to stop the ritual." The sheriff nodded. "They'll kill us," the agent warned. "Then let them try," the sheriff said. Silence. Then I said the only thing that made sense. "We break the circle. We disrupt the pattern. We interrupt the awakening." The agent closed his eyes. "Then God help us." Because what happened next, when we stepped into the clearing, would change everything. The watchers reacted. The carrier roared. The ground split wide, and the harrower opened its eyes below the soil. We stepped into the second clearing, knowing full well it might be the last thing we ever did. The watchers reacted instantly, not with aggression, not with panic, with precision. They shifted, every single one of them, turning their massive torsos toward us in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by one mind. Even the carrier paused, its enormous frame tensing, long arms dangling inches above the ground. But the ritual didn't stop. The earth kept rising, cracking, splitting. A shape pulsed beneath the soil, huge, coiled, alive, the harrower. As we crossed the perimeter of the clearing, the spiral began to glow faintly in the early dawn light. Not actual light, not heat, a vibration, visible through shifting grains of soil. The sheriff whispered, "We only need to break one segment of the circle." But the watchers knew that too. 3 stepped inward, blocking our path, lowering themselves to ground level like gorillas preparing to charge. The carrier let out a bass frequency growl that vibrated in my ribs. The federal agent raised his weapon, but the sheriff grabbed his arm. "You fire that, we die." He wasn't wrong. Everything in the clearing reacted to sound, to pressure, to disruption. A gunshot would be like throwing gasoline on a wildfire. So we moved quietly, slowly, deliberately, trying not to provoke the watchers into coordinated attack behavior. But then, the soil split. A fissure cracked open in the center of the spiral. Dirt fell inward, sucked down like sand into a whirlpool. Then a shape rose from the void. Not humanoid, not animal. Something primordial. A slick, stone-like surface emerged first, curved, ridged, patterned with natural spirals that mirrored the clearing itself. Then another section. A ridge, a plate, a shell-like structure covered in earth. The harrower wasn't rising like a creature coming to attack. It was rising like a monument being unearthed. Jared whispered, "It's not a beast. It's a titan." Mina's voice shook. "Keep moving. Break the circle." One of the watchers moved, finally, not toward us, toward the carrier. It let out a guttural call, a signal, and the carrier responded. It lunged toward us with horrifying speed. But Jared, reacting without thought, grabbed a flare from his vest, struck it, and threw it in front of the creature. The sudden burst of red light didn't frighten the carrier. It confused it. The creature halted, sniffing the burning phosphor, unsure how to interpret it. "Now!" Mina shouted. "Move!" We rushed toward the outer ring of the spiral. The watchers responded instantly. 3 barreled forward, massive bodies cutting through soil, arms wide like battering rams. The agent screamed, "Down!" We dove. The watchers thundered past us, overshooting by inches, their momentum carrying them several yards before they could pivot. That gave us 4 seconds. 4 precious seconds. We scrambled to the spiral's edge. Mina knelt, hands trembling, and drove her knife into the soil. She sliced through the top layer of the spiral pattern, breaking the continuity, breaking the ritual, and the ground reacted. The harrower stopped rising. Its massive form froze mid-emergence, as if something had interrupted its command sequence. The vibration halted. The glow died. The watchers staggered, literally staggered. For the first time since we'd seen them, they lost synchronization. Their heads twitched. Their stances faltered. The carrier howled. A deep, mournful, furious bellow that echoed through the clearing. The ground beneath the harrower buckled, then collapsed inward. The Titan shape sank abruptly, dragged down as if gravity tripled in an instant. The spiral cracked into 7 separate pieces. The awakening stopped mid-birth. We did it. For about 3 seconds, we believed that, until the federal agent shouted, "Run! They're switching priorities." When the ritual broke, the Watchers underwent a shift that was almost mechanical. Their posture changed. Their breathing changed. Their focus changed. Their purpose changed. No longer offering. No longer guarding. No longer performing their ancient task. Now they had a new directive. Neutralize the disruptors. And we were the disruptors. The sheriff shouted. Back to the tree-lean. But the Watchers moved faster. 2 charged from the left, 1 from the right. The carrier barreled behind them like a truck made of bone and muscle. The ground shook with every impact. Trees splintered. Roots tore. "Split up," the agent yelled. "No," the sheriff countered. "They hunt separate targets first, then isolate the slowest." Jared grabbed Mina's arm. "We stay together. We stay fast." The Watchers close in. But then, something unexpected happened. A sound erupted from the collapsing fissure. Not a roar. Not a scream. A command. 4 tones. Layered. Deep enough to rattle teeth. Every Watcher froze. Dead still. Their heads snapped toward the center of the clearing. Toward the sinking harrower. Then, they backed away. Every last one of them. Retreating into the trees at unbelievable speed. Within seconds, the clearing was empty. Silent. The agent's voice hardened. "If you interrupt this ritual now, they won't flee. They'll protect the harrower." Tom whispered, meaning the agent locked eyes with him. "They'll kill everyone here." Just then, my radio buzzed. The deputy back at the clinic. "Lance is awake again," he said, "and he's asking for you." "What does he want?" I asked. He keeps repeating one phrase. "Say it." The deputy swallowed audibly. He says, "Don't let them complete the circle." My blood ran cold. The spiral. The barrier. The offerings. Jared whispered, "It's not a containment ring. It's a completion ritual. If they finish the ring," Mina said, "the harrower fully wakes." Agent 2 nodded grimly. "Correct." The harrower's form pressed higher beneath the earth, muscle-like mounds shifting under the soil. The ground cracked in a widening circle. The Watchers moved in tighter formation. The carrier placed the bodies at the spiral center, one by one, and stepped back, waiting. Everything in me screamed to run, to retreat, to leave the forest forever. But Mina grabbed my sleeve. "We have to stop the ritual." The sheriff nodded. "They'll kill us," the agent warned. "Then let them try," the sheriff said. Silence. Then I said the only thing that made sense. We break the circle. We disrupt the pattern. We interrupt the awakening. The agent closed his eyes. Then God help us. Because what happened next, when we stepped into the clearing, would change everything. The Watchers reacted. The carrier roared. The ground split wide. And the harrower opened its eyes below the soil. We stepped into the second clearing, knowing full well it might be the last thing we ever did. The Watchers reacted instantly, not with aggression, not with panic, with precision. They shifted, every single one of them, turning their massive torsos toward us in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by one mind. Even the carrier paused, its enormous frame tensing, long arms dangling inches above the ground. But the ritual didn't stop. The earth kept rising, cracking, splitting. A shape pulsed beneath the soil, huge, coiled, alive, the harrower. As we crossed the perimeter of the clearing, the spiral began to glow faintly in the early dawn light. Not actual light, not heat, a vibration, visible through shifting grains of soil. The sheriff whispered, "We only need to break one segment of the circle." But the Watchers knew that too. 3 stepped inward, blocking our path, lowering themselves to ground level like gorillas preparing to charge. The carrier let out a bass-frequency growl that vibrated in my ribs. The federal agent raised his weapon, but the sheriff grabbed his arm. "You fire that, we die." He wasn't wrong. Everything in the clearing reacted to sound, to pressure, to disruption. A gunshot would be like throwing gasoline on a wildfire. So we moved quietly, slowly, deliberately, trying not to provoke the watchers into coordinated attack behavior. But then, the soil split. A fissure cracked open in the center of the spiral. Dirt fell inward, sucked down like sand into a whirlpool. Then a shape rose from the void. Not humanoid, not animal. Something primordial. A slick, stone-like surface emerged first, curved, ridged, patterned with natural spirals that mirrored the clearing itself. Then another section. A ridge, a plate, a shell-like structure covered in earth. The harrower wasn't rising like a creature coming to attack. It was rising like a monument being unearthed. Jared whispered, "It's not a beast. It's a titan." Mina's voice shook. "Keep moving. Break the circle." One of the watchers moved, finally, not toward us, toward the carrier. It let out a guttural call, a signal, and the carrier responded. It lunged toward us with horrifying speed. But Jared, reacting without thought, grabbed a flare from his vest, struck it, and threw it in front of the creature. The sudden burst of red light didn't frighten the carrier. It confused it. The creature halted, sniffing the burning phosphor, unsure how to interpret it. "Now!" Mina shouted. "Move!" We rushed toward the outer ring of the spiral. The watchers responded instantly. 3 barreled forward, massive bodies cutting through soil, arms wide like battering rams. The agent screamed, "Down!" We dove. The watchers thundered past us, overshooting by inches, their momentum carrying them several yards before they could pivot. That gave us 4 seconds. 4 precious seconds. We scrambled to the spiral's edge. Mina knelt, hands trembling, and drove her knife into the soil. She sliced through the top layer of the spiral pattern, breaking the continuity, breaking the ritual, and the ground reacted. The harrower stopped rising. Its massive form froze mid-emergence, as if something had interrupted its command sequence. The vibration halted. The glow died. The watchers staggered, literally staggered. For the first time since we'd seen them, they lost synchronization. Their heads twitched. Their stances faltered. The carrier howled, a deep, mournful, furious bellow that echoed through the clearing. The ground beneath the harrower buckled, then collapsed inward. The titan shape sank abruptly, dragged down as if gravity tripled in an instant. The spiral cracked into 7 separate pieces. The awakening stopped mid-birth. We did it. For about 3 seconds, we believed that, until the federal agent shouted, "Run. They're switching priorities." When the ritual broke, the watchers underwent a shift that was almost mechanical. Their posture changed. Their breathing changed. Their focus changed. Their purpose changed. No longer offering. No longer guarding. No longer performing their ancient task. Now they had a new directive. Neutralize the disruptors. And we were the disruptors. The sheriff shouted, "Back to the tree-line." But the watchers moved faster. 2 charged from the left, 1 from the right. The carrier barreled behind them like a truck made of bone and muscle. The ground shook with every impact. Trees splintered. Roots tore. "Split up," the agent yelled. "No," the sheriff countered. "They hunt separate targets first, then isolate the slowest." Jared grabbed Mina's arm. We stay together. We stay fast. The watchers closed in. But then, something unexpected happened. A sound erupted from the collapsing fissure. Not a roar, not a scream. A command. 4 tones. Layered, deep enough to rattle teeth. Every watcher froze. Dead still. Their heads snapped toward the center of the clearing, toward the sinking harrower. Except for the faint tremor of the harrower still alive beneath the ground. We stood in the clearing, alive, shaking, stunned. Mina finally spoke. "What just happened?" The federal agent answered. "The harrower isn't dead. It isn't defeated. It simply ordered them to stand down." "Why?" Jared asked. The agent looked at the fractured spiral. Because the ritual was interrupted. It can't finish its emergence tonight. The sheriff exhaled. So we bought time. The agent nodded. Yes, a day, maybe two. Tom rubbed his face. And after that? The agent looked at us, serious, exhausted, and brutally honest. After that, it will try again. In the distance, far beyond the trees, we heard the Watcher's migration calls echo through the forest. Not panicked, not defeated, organizing, because the harrower wasn't done. It was preparing the next clearing, and the next offering, and we were now directly in its path. The government didn't give us 48 hours. They gave us 12, because 3 hours after we broke the ritual at the second clearing, federal seismic monitors in Oregon, Idaho, and Montana all recorded the same pattern. New spirals, new vibrations, new awakenings. The harrower was not a local phenomenon. It was a network, a chain of ancient emergence points buried beneath the forests of the Northwest, a system that had been dormant for centuries until something triggered it. And our county was simply the first to rise. The federal agents finally admitted the truth. You didn't delay the awakening, the lead agent said. You forced it to shift its attention. Now it's consolidating power. The Watchers weren't fleeing. They were regrouping, migrating to one location, a final clearing, the largest one, the one marked at the center of the woven map, the one every other spiral pointed toward, the origin site, located deep in land that had no trails, no roads, no name, a place the agents called the Mouth of Stone. We hiked at dusk with a full tactical escort, drones overhead, seismic trackers and backpacks, thermal scopes sweeping every trunk and shadow. As we approached the origin site, the forest changed. The air hummed. The ground felt warm. The trees leaned inward, bending unnaturally, as if gravity had shifted sideways. Jared whispered, "This isn't forest. It's architecture." And he was right. Branches, roots, stones, all arranged subtly, perfectly, deliberately, like the Watchers had shaped the entire landscape for centuries. For this moment, for this awakening. We reached the clearing right before nightfall. It wasn't a clearing. It was a crater, hundreds of yards wide, perfectly circular, lined with stone slabs like vertebrae emerging from the earth. And in the center, a massive spiral, carved deeper than any we'd seen, wide enough to swallow a house, already vibrating, already glowing, already calling. The ground pulsed like a heartbeat. Lines of Watchers stood at the rim, hundreds of them, facing inward, unmoving, waiting. And at the center of the spiral, the harrower, fully emerged, 40 feet tall, a titan of stone and flesh, ribbed with ancient armor, eyes glowing with deep earth fire, a shape not meant to walk the surface world. We arrived just as the Watchers placed the final offerings at its feet. Not bodies, not victims, stones, roots, earth, the forest itself. The harrower wasn't consuming people. It was consuming the land, awakening not to kill, but to reshape, to reclaim, to rebuild a world that wasn't meant for humans. The agents prepared explosives around the rim. The sheriff ordered his deputies back. "You're not dying here," he told them. Mina grabbed my arm. "There's no breaking the circle this time," she said. "It's too big." Jared swallowed hard. Then we break the harrower. Tom stared at the massive titan. "With what?" "Rocks." The lead agent spoke. "We don't need to destroy it. Just collapse it." "Collapse?" Mina asked. He nodded at the spirals. "The spirals are channels, energy pathways. Break enough of them, the harrower loses structural integrity." "Meaning?" I asked. "It returns underground. It goes dormant again." "How long?" Jared asked. "Maybe a century. Maybe forever. We don't know." A tremor shook the crater. Time was gone. We split into 4 teams, each with one goal: destroy a section of the spiral. The Watchers reacted immediately. They surged inward, hundreds of them, charging, screaming, roaring with primal fury. The agents opened fire. The sheriff shouted orders. Jared threw flares. Mina used thermal to blind them. Tom set charges. I ran, straight toward the spiral, straight toward the harrower. I reached my section and planted the explosive. The harrower turned. It looked at me, not with hatred, with recognition, with awareness, as if it remembered the spiral we broke earlier, as if it understood we were the ones preventing its rise. It opened its mouth, and the sound that escaped wasn't a roar. It was a word, ancient, layered, impossible to understand, but I felt its meaning. Release. Then the ground buckled. Mina screamed that her charges were armed. Tom shouted the countdown. Jared yelled for everyone to fall back. And we did. The 4 explosives detonated at once, shattering the spiral, splitting the stone ribs, sending shock waves through crater. The harrower staggered. Cracks split across its body, lines of molten earth spilling out. Then it fell, backward, downward, into the crater. The ground swallowed it. The spiral collapsed. The watchers screamed, a sound of rage and mourning, then fled into the forest, vanishing as if pulled by invisible strings. The origin site caved in. Silence followed. Real silence. No vibration. No hum. No pulse. The harrower was gone. The government sealed the entire region, declared it a landslide zone, restricted all access. The sheriff resigned quietly, his hair grayed by the ordeal. Jared left the country. Last message he sent me said, "Don't go into the woods alone." Tom went back to his job. Never filmed another forest documentary again. Mina stayed with me, and we locked the footage away because the agents were right. If the world saw what we saw, panic would tear civilization apart. The watchers didn't return. The spiral stopped appearing. The seismic activity died. For now, the harrower sleeps again, deep beneath earth, waiting, listening, dreaming. And when the watchers return, when the spirals reform, when the dragging begins again, the world will know the truth. What we call Bigfoot is not the monster. They are the messengers of something far older, something patient, something inevitable, something that will rise again. And next time, we may not be able to break the circle,